I am the red, white, and blue pancakes from Denny's.
America.
And this is Sibling Rivalry.
He told me not to trust anyone. This is how it ends. Everything goes.
Captain America is back and he's fighting the Winter Soldier, but this time he has help from the Black Widow, Nick Fury, and a whole bunch of other cool characters in Captain America, the Winter Soldier. And that's pretty much all we can say until we get into spoiler territory. Like, the spoiler corner is probably going to be much bigger.
This movie's loaded.
Yeah.
It's like the anti-Iron Man 2, where nothing happened in that movie. Everything happens in this film.
Like I said, the spoiler corner on this might be longer, but the only other thing we can say, honestly, in terms of story, is that he is going after the Winter Soldier, whom identity is a mystery, and that S.H.I.E.L.D. is also after him. S.H.I.E.L.D. is the agency they work for. They have a popular ABC show right now.
It's more like he's after S.H.I.E.L.D., I
Well,
think.
that too. They're after each other.
It's complicated.
Yeah, so for now, that's about all we can reveal. For me, watching this movie, I'm not a huge Captain America guy. He was always kind of one of my least favorites. But I like the first movie. Like, we should probably talk about that. I like the first movie fine. It wasn't epic or grand or anything, but it was fine for something I don't usually get into with this character. I thought it was great. I like the main guy and Red Skull and all that stuff. But I think a lot of it served as like filler until the Avengers. And in a sense, watching this one, it felt...
I disagree.
You like the Captain America?
Yeah, because I don't feel it was filler because it was an origin story that needed to be told. So to me, it's like saying, well, I think the first Batman Begins is filler, really, until you get to Dark Knight. No,
well, you can kind of make that argument in some sense.
But you needed to set up the character. So I don't think it was filler. I don't think it was a great movie. I thought it was pretty darn good, though. Like, I've always been a Captain America fan. When it comes to the Avengers, I was always Iron Man, then Captain America. So Thor was way down at the bottom, which is why I'm still amazed we got 2 Thor movies, but whatever. So I thought the film actually did a pretty good job, and it was really like old school in a fun way.
Yeah, it seemed...
You don't get that anymore.
The guy who directed it, I believe, also directed Rocketeer, and it had that vibe, and I like that. And
it was very stuck in the 40s. The Red Skull, Hugo Weaving as Red Skull was great. It was very colorful. It's exactly what Captain America needed to be. Not the greatest comic book movie ever, but it really did its job.
It was a straightforward comic book movie. You watch it, that's what is one of the things I like about Marvel.
That's the origin of Captain America. There you go.
Yeah. And now we have this one. This takes place in modern time, so you don't quite have, like you were talking about, sort of the upbeat feel of the 40s and stuff, and sort of the stylized look. Now it's modern, so you're kind of wondering what they're going to do. And with this one, I got, a touch of the filler vibe, but... and I didn't see it as quite grand or epic, but for just a good action film and just superheroes, comic books, kind of twists and turns, and good characters and decent action, I liked it. I thought it was relatively strong.
I couldn't disagree with that statement more about not really that epic. This is probably the most epic comic book movie we've had since... Probably, well, in the Marvel Universe, at least since Avengers. I mean, Thor 2, Iron Man 3.
Oh, no, I agree, but I think... Okay, let me put it this way. When I think of, like, epic comic book movie, I think of, like, Batman, even Avengers, even some of the Spider-Man.
This goes toe-to-toe with that, easily.
You think so?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, for me, I definitely saw it definitely stepped up its game from the last one. I mean, this definitely seems, like, much bigger, but it's still to be continued, and even, like, the last image before the credits is sort of like, here we go. It's not even, like, anything that grand or big. But at the same time, for something that is, like...
Think about what happened, though, and this is part of the problem. You're probably just going to have to turn into the spoiler corner, because... But when you think about what happened in this movie, it's incredibly epic.
Well, no, I'll say this, too. No, I'll say this, too. After I saw the movie, I'm like, that was good, even better than I expected it, all right. And as I let it sit with me, I realized, man, there's a lot of areas they could have gone wrong, and there's a lot of areas where I'm like, well, in another movie they would have done this, well, in another movie they would have done this cliche, another movie, and it's like, they definitely have some of those cliches, but I'm thinking back, it's like, this could have been just kind of like what you said, like a Thor 2 or an Iron Man 2 or 3 or something, but it actually does kind of stand out.
Basically what it did was, it gave me my Superman movie 1 year later. Like, this is what Man of Steel should have been. Like, it's an American icon dealing with darkness, going through a personal journey, like, trying to figure out where he stands in the world now. I'm like, and it did it right, and it was really fun, and it was executed well, and the flashbacks made sense. The whole thing is just DC take notes. Take notes.
You want to know what I like? You want to know what my favorite scene in this movie is?
And Warner Brothers take notes too, the lot of you.
You want to know what my favorite scene in this movie is? And it's not action-packed, it's not anything, it's the very opening, where you see Captain America jogging, he jogs with this other guy, a guy who's gonna be a main character, but you don't even know, he could just be a guy, and they just
on your left.
Yeah, on your left. I mean, and it's just a nice conversation. They just talk, they share some war stories, they make some jokes, and they're people.
Holy crap!
You can hear that,
development.
and it's not like, well, let me tell you about my dark, tormented past. No, they're shooting the shit. They're talking.
Let me
they're
throw
likable.
a bunch of Jesus allegories at you. I am Captain Jesus. Like, it's none of that crap.
Well, and that all comes back as well, because we do see that guy again, and when they get back together to team up, you're really happy to see it, because you're like, oh yeah, no, they had like a real good connection, and you genuinely want to see them work together, and they do work together, and the guy is great, this Falcon guy, who I'll say again, I knew nothing about who Falcon was. I knew nothing about who Falcon was. I had to look him up afterwards. I'm like, oh, he's this comic book character who was with Captain America. Okay, but he's awesome. I want more of this guy.
Best new, how would you say it, techno gadget thing since Iron Man.
Yeah, I mean, it's like,
I'd actually love to see him go toe-to-toe with Iron Man, actually.
No, yeah, well, especially after you see the comic and what he looks like,
Yeah.
it's like, oh no, this is a good upgrade. Like, this is a really good upgrade.
I was so impressed with what they did with Falcon, and every single character in this movie has a point.
And
That's
they're
another
likable.
thing.
And and like I said, they're people. You feel like they're people. Like, you can relate to them, you can talk with them, you get an idea if you talk to Nick Fury, what he would say back if he had a conversation. If you talk to Black Widow, what she would say back if he had a conversation with
them.
them.
And the relationship she has with Captain America, like, this actually ended up being a really great Black Widow movie, who has been criminally underused.
Okay, I'm gonna say right now, Black Widow, I think, is my new favorite Avenger. Because it used to be like maybe Iron Man, and actually I kind of like the guy who played Thor. I think
She's always way up there.
But like, and I think so much of it, I'm not even going to necessarily credit the writing, I really do think it's Scarlett Johansson. She brings this attitude and this presence to her that the closest analogy I can think of, I think Indiana Jones. Like, just the way it's like, yeah, I'll just do it, or, okay, and, yeah, let's make it. It's sort of this cynicism and this monotone
some of it
that
too is,
really works.
Some of it, too, is the writing, though, because the concept of putting the Boy Scout with the sort of mean girl, like, they're so diametrically opposed that...
Well, she doesn't even, I don't know, she doesn't seem mean to me. She just
Not
seems
the
like,
mean girl, but
just gotta do what you gotta do, you know.
She's
whatever.
the naughty one. I mean, basically, this is like the femme fatale being set against the Boy Scout. Like, it just... And it actually really works together.
But not in a gimmicky buddy cop
not in a
movie.
gimmicky,
Like, they
but,
really
yeah.
work well with each other. And I like this movie, too, because you have all these pairings of people. You got Captain America with Falcon, you have him with Black Widow, you have him with Nick Fury, and they all work.
Yeah.
They all legitimately work.
It's surprisingly the only character that is slightly wasted was the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, which
I feel like they're once again pulling the old Marvel trick, and actually, well, DC does, they all do it, of like, oh, well, we can't give away the entire story now because then we won't have something for a third film, and...
Well, that's sort of my thought with why I say it feels a little bit like the filler. Like, when Batman ends, it's like, it's done.
Yeah, but the actual plot that happens doesn't. His character is a little fillerish in that they could have fleshed out more with him. But I got just enough that I felt satisfied.
Oh no, I totally did too. Especially going to
it's no Mandarin. Like, if you're worried, like, it's like, oh my god, this could turn into Mandarin. Like, it's not that.
No, and let's make it clear, they do give him development, but it's all kind of squeezed in at the end, and I'm sort of thinking, like, wouldn't this be more interesting if it was spread out throughout the whole film?
It feels like it should have been more of the focus, and instead the focus is more about the political intrigue, the Captain America wrestling with what America means now to him and this and that, which is fine, but it gets a little bit crowded. Like,
yeah, the two things, you mentioned one, the Winter Soldier not getting quite enough focus. The only other thing I'll bring up that kind of bothered me was that the climax particularly, while impressive, and you see the money up there, it looks so cool,
God,
and it's sort of like,
long.
yeah, we can wrap this up a little earlier.
This
here,
is
guys.
such a problem with modern films. Nobody remembers how to make a 90-minute movie. Nobody! You remember, like, all the films we watched in the 80s, and we watch them now, we're like, wow, that's really short. That used to be normal.
Well,
like, and it worked that way because it's economy of storytelling, and nowadays, this is my one gripe with this film, too. It's like, I feel like they're telling, like, this 2.5-hour story that, could have been done in 90 minutes.
Honestly, I wasn't feeling like it was long. I wasn't feeling like it was long until we got to the climax. I was actually with it throughout majority of it, but I think there's one point where, like, Falcon is fighting, like, this other dude, this white dude coming up the stairs. He's like, I got him, and he lost his wings. I remember thinking, like, dude, you don't have your wings. You got your time in the sky. You're good. We can edit this out. It's like, but no, you have to have this little fight sequence going on. It's like, you didn't need that.
And it's the fact that it's not that he just goes back in there to restart the fight. I'm like, okay, so he doesn't want to go out like a bitch. I get it. But that fight itself went on so long that, like, seriously, like, the stuff with Captain America and Black Widow, like, their whole end of the fight, like, against the main villains ends, and then
his is still going
back to Falcon.
Like, oh,
and
really?
I'm like, are you guys still going? You realize everyone else is done now.
Yeah.
So it was a little long. Now, to be fair, it was a really good action set piece. So it's not a Michael Bay film. It's, it's not bad. It's just, I feel like, man, at some point we can cut these films down to a more reasonable running time.
Yeah, I think
it's not a Gore Verbinski film. It's not Pirates at World's End. Like
for example, there's a scene early on where Nick Fury is cornered by these cars, and it's a really cool scene.
Oh, that scene was badass.
But you could have cut it in half. Really think about it. I mean, there's a part he's cornered and they're giving him and he's trying to fight off, but for what the movie had to do, he then escapes and then they have a drive down the road. And it's like, you didn't need to drive down the road. Just get to the ending of that, and it's cool. Don't get me wrong. It's all very impressive. But
it's not god-awfully long. It's just that slight amount of long where you're like, wow, this came really close to being perfectly paced, and then there's like an extra 5 minutes here or there, and you're like,
But
seriously.
yeah, it's kind of a nitpick, honestly.
I think my only other nitpick is the action's really sporadic. Some of it is really good. Like, probably some of the best action you will see in a comic book movie.
I was digging the shield in this one.
This decade. Yeah, they made the shield look realistic. I'm like, okay, I totally buy that this is a weapon now. So some of it's really amazing, and then some of it is like that fucking Bourne Identity crap, where it's like
it's
that between Michael Bay and the Jason Bourne movies. Those have seriously ruined action films for me more than anything in the past 10 years. Like, seriously, you have all of this technology, you have CGI, you have all of this fight choreography.
Yeah, good stuff.
Just show it! Show it! Stop shaking the camera around.
You can see, it's for anyone that's going to be scared off by that, it's not the entire movie. And I wouldn't even necessarily say it's half, but it's just enough where you're kind of like, okay, I can make that out, but you didn't
it's just enough where I'm able to see just barely enough and be like, wow, that looked like a really cool fight. Wish I could have seen all of it. Like, it's just so, like, and the camera's like, and I'm like, I thought I saw something really cool, not entirely sure. But the thing is, this film at least does it way better than, like, a Michael Bay movie or half those other
Hunger Games.
or the first Hunger Games. So, like, it's still, like, steps above, but it still is that one little thing that bugs me, which is, like, just let us see the action.
Yeah, and I know it's like, you want Shaken to make it look a little bit more realistic, like you're in there and stuff like that, but it doesn't have to be that much, I feel. It's like, just a little bit of shaking,
I mean, for action, for me, I honestly think this is the best movie probably since The Dark Knight. Like, when it comes to the action and stuff, and I'm not...
Even more than Avengers?
I'm not dissing Avengers. Avengers was very much... It's hard to explain. There's a ton of CGI in this movie as well. And Avengers was very good, and I thought what they set up was great.
You're still fighting a person, though, not these giant alien monsters.
Yeah, it's giant aliens. This is old school. There's a ton of CGI in this. Very well done for the most part. There's only a few scenes where I'm like, that's really fake. But the helicarriers, when they launch, like, amazing. There's just something about, like, two dudes fighting that I kind of miss to some extent. I mean, like, but what about Superman? I was like, it's different. They're flying, and that was just punch, fly a million miles away, punch.
They're obviously covered by green screen throughout the whole thing. Here it's like...
This one looks and feels like The Dark Knight did, where it's Batman with his fist flying in and kicking ass. And
the opening, he's on a boat, and you're like, you know they didn't green screen the boat. Or, you know, he's fighting this guy in the opening where he puts the shield down. You know they didn't green screen all this. They're really there and they're really fighting.
Yeah, for me, best action since Dark Knight. The only thing it's missing, the one thing that Dark Knight does trump it a little, is there is a lot of CGI, and there's never a moment, like, I give Nolan all this credit. When stuff blew up, particularly in Dark Knight, he tried to film as much as that as he could without CGIing it. They frickin' flipped an entire truck on LaSalle Street in Chicago. If you've ever been on LaSalle Street in Chicago, you realize what a nightmare that is to do. They really had that chase on Lower Wacker, and there's no big set piece like that feels 100% real. There's a lot of giant CGI helicarriers and stuff, so I kind of missed that a bit, but really just...
I think we're getting more into, that big and stuff. I mean, but
it's really just... I don't know, what...
You tell me, you're the critic.
I don't know. I was just blown away by this movie. Somebody was asking me, is it better than Avengers? And what do you think?
They seem like two... They are similar, but they are still different movies. Avengers is very much a fun, knock-em, sock-em kind of action comedy. Yeah. On the grandest scale that you can get.
I completely agree.
But this is much more, hey, let's really look at a character. Let's look at what it means to be a hero. It felt like one superhero's journey surrounded by good supporting casts that you like to see, where the other one, Avengers, it's amazing it turned out as it did, but it's like, well, you got 5 or 6 superheroes here, and you can't have that kind of movie with that set.
Well, I told the people that were asking me, like, is better, I'm like, it's pick your own poison, because you're completely right. Avengers was insanely entertaining, really very funny, and I enjoyed it a lot. It's kind of shallow, though. Like, it's really just a bunch of dudes hanging out, kicking a little ass, and this one, not really as funny.
Well, and it's
got
has to be
much more.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying that's something that makes the Avengers bad. I thought it was a lot of fun. This one, for me, I kind of liked a little more because I thought it had a much stronger story. A lot more depth. There was some good character development in it. It's kind of like the Avengers. It's the same universe, but it's very much like, let's combine the action and the drama and give something with a little more heft. So my opinion, it edged out Avengers a little for me, but...
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to say, like, it's just, it feels like two different movies. I think
That's
I like
not saying Avengers sucks. Yeah. I loved Avengers.
I'd probably say I like Avengers a little bit more, sort of, because it felt a little bit more contained, which even though I know it's whatever lead to Avengers 2 and stuff, but... And I do like movies like that just a touch more, but I'm still with you. That doesn't mean this is, by any means, a bad movie or far less or anything. It's a different kind of movie, and in many respects it is stronger.
But the fact that we can have this conversation and you have to think about it for a second...
Yeah, it's like, that's pretty impressive.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, can you imagine telling your, 10-year-old self, like, 20-something years ago and being like, oh yeah, no, in the future, there will be a really good Captain America movie. Like, think back to the Captain America. We're going to argue for the nostalgic, the Fantastic Four, the Punisher, those crappy 80s, early 90s films. Like,
well, they still haven't made a good Punisher.
No, they haven't. But like, when you think about what Marvel was,
what comic book movies were, really,
what comic book movies were, and I mean, all credit to DC for resurrecting it with Tim Burton's Batman and at least keeping it alive with Superman, but. Man, when it came to Marvel, that decade was a desert!
Yeah, no, and it's nice. It's like, well, which one do you think is better? The Captain America one or the Avengers one? If I'm a little kid listening to this, like, wait a minute, Avengers? Like, oh yeah, they got Iron Man and Hulk and Thor. They all have their own movies, by the way. And I would just, my head would explode.
I love Captain America, but I'd be sitting there like, wait, you mean... kind of a second-tier-ish character. I mean, let's be honest, he goes in and out of popularity, but I mean, an icon, but, you know, he's no Batman, he's no Superman when it comes to popularity. Gets 2 movies out of, like, 20 Marvel movies? Like, I wouldn't have believed you.
Well, it's funny, it's interesting just how it's like...
We're in a golden age of comic book movies. I'm not saying they're all good. I mean, because there are some pretty damn bad ones, and there is a fatigue I get from sitting through the really bad ones, but I think we're going to look back 20 years from now and be like, man, remember when comic book movies just ruled the earth?
Yeah, no, they're like the thing now, right now. I think like, whatever, late 80s, it was like stand-up comics rule the earth, and then like early 2000s it was like fantasy, and now it's like the comic book.
Well,
it's
like the 80s there was a lot of sci-fi.
Yeah, sci-fi
Star
and stuff,
Wars
yeah, but now it's, comic books are huge.
I think this film just really hammers in how really behind the 8-ball DC and Warner Brothers are.
Well, yeah.
I mean, like, I'm like looking at this like, okay, so you're mid-level, you know, good character, but your kind of second-tier character gets what they just made probably one of the best comic book movies since Avengers, since Dark Knight, you know. They already have all of this set up. Marvel has set everything up, and where are we now in the DC universe? We're gonna get a Batman versus Superman movie.
Oh, and we're also gonna, and the side Wonder Woman's gonna be in there.
Well, that bothers
maybe
me
a
too.
Green Lantern.
What a great movie for diversity this one is. And this is really ironic for a movie that's about the whitest of white superheroes, like Wonder Bread Boy Scout Captain America. We've got Falcon, we've got Nick Fury, we've got Black Widow coming completely into her own. She carries like a good chunk of this
wait
film.
until she gets her own movie. I hear they're doing a movie with her, and I'm excited. I really want to see how that's going to turn out.
All of these great diverse characters, and yeah, over at DC, it's like, well, we may give Wonder Woman a cameo in Batman vs. Superman or something, but we're set up for the Justice League movie. It'll happen eventually. And I'm like, guys, you're so far behind. You used to be ahead of the game. What happened?
Well, and the other thing, too, will probably be the last thing, we're probably going on too long here, but the other thing, too, with this Marvel Universe, and something, you know, you're kind of yelling at DC, and I guess kind of rightfully so, but at the same time, what Marvel has done here, what they have put together, I mean, really has never quite been done before on this grand a scale, to have movies and shows and movies combining other movies, all linked up, all have to be continued.
Executed well enough.
Yeah,
even
I mean,
with
they're
the
not all
crap
great,
films,
but...
you can still kind of slide through it.
But yeah, like, you even want to see the crap films just to see what the end credit scene is. You know, just what the to be continued. You know, it's actually, we're returning to movie serials. But they're done really
I was
well.
thinking the same thing this morning.
You know,
I was like,
this is like on the next Flash Gordon.
Yeah, this is totally Flash Gordon, the 30s movie serials done with $200 million. Kind of like maybe what Star Wars would have been had you told 20 separate stories with it, you know. But
now we might, who knows? You know,
well, we might, now that
we'll see how that goes.
Disney's got that, and Marvel. Oh my God, they're going to
Disney has us now. Disney has us.
And let me just say on a very personal level, what a fine company it is.
we just did Disney Afternoon.
Shut up! I'll kick your ass!
It was mostly positive.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks that was like a tie-in now. Like, oh, so the Disney Afternoon came out after Maker. Like, yeah, we shot it and edited it one day.
And people get upset at me and they're like, oh, you hate DC and you hate Man of Steel. I don't hate DC. I actually feel like I'm upset because I enjoy competition, and I get people who are just like, well, it shouldn't be about Marvel versus DC. Well, yeah, it should, because competition is what makes you want to strive to be better than the other guy and keep competing. And I just want DC and Warner Brothers to just do better. I liked Superman. I liked Batman. Sandman was one of my favorite comic book series of all time, a graphic novel, but so they're just playing catch up. Get with it!
So, final sum up, it's a good action flick, it's got good action, it's got good character, good supporting characters in it as well. It is sort of a transition to the next movie. Even the very last scene indicates there's like 3 or 4 transitions.
I will say this
movie.
though, I think it does work well enough on its own, which is one of the things I really
liked about it. It is a good, I mean,
it does tell, there's side things that are like swept away.
You have to see the movie before.
Yeah, there's a full story arc though in this one.
Yeah, it doesn't quite just feel like full filler. It's like you feel these characters have discovered something, they're coming through. It's a movie. It's still a movie.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just the middle, you know. It's like an Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, it's sort of Well, Empire Strikes Back really was continuing a story, but yeah, it's a decent film and it has good action if you're just looking for a good popcorn movie with some decent character building and good stuff in it. It's a good movie to check out. So, any closing thoughts?
Blows Iron Man 2, those Thor movies, Man of Steel, everything else out of the
Iron
water.
Man 3,
so,
yeah.
Iron Man 3, yeah. Like, make more like these.
Yes.
That's all I can say. And why are you sitting here watching this? Go see it again.
You and the captain, make it happen. I just did that.